Tonight, we talk about the 5 most influential bourbons, at least in my journey. Come along. Well, tonight's Q&A topic was suggested by Andrew Coleman. He is a subscriber to the channel and a friend. And we were talking one day about topics to do shows on, and he told me about this article in Reddit several months back where someone raised the question about what were your 5 most influential bourbons. I'm assuming they're talking about your bourbon journey. What led you to where you are today with your bourbons? What was the 5 most influential bourbons? And I got to thinking about that. Like, well, that would be a good show. Well, who's done it? Well, Andrew couldn't think of anybody that had done it. And so I thought, like, well, we need to make a show on that. And it'll be easy, right? No, it wasn't easy. I've got 150, 160 something bourbons sitting in the studio on different walls. And to pick 5 bourbons out of that as my most influential bourbons, I had to think about it. But it really was a cool question, and I think I've come up with some good answers, and I want to ask you the same question. So I want you to tell me in the comments the answers to the questions I'll ask you, and I'll let you know what my answers were. So let's get right to it. The first question I came up with was, what was the bourbon that started it all for me? In other words, not was the first bourbon I ever tasted. That was probably Jack Daniel's when I was 15 years old. No one's watching. Not your first bourbon, not the bourbon that you remember. What was the bourbon that made you a bourbon lover, that started your bourbon journey? For me, that was the Buffalo Trace. Just a standard Buffalo Trace, no single barrel, nothing special, no store pick. Run-of-the-mill Buffalo Trace. And back when I first started drinking that, I could find Buffalo Trace. It wasn't for, I don't know, a year or two after I actually got into Buffalo Trace that it became allocated and you couldn't get it. That's another story for another show. But Buffalo Trace was something I almost tried by accident. Someone said, oh, you should try this. This stuff's great. And, you know, I was a tequila and rum person, you know, white liquor, nothing tinted, didn't want it, had nothing to do with it. And me and the wife tried this in a cocktail, you know, kind of an old-fashioned style cocktail. And we loved it. And that became our regular drink. When we had a cocktail on the weekend, it would always be in Buffalo Trace. And I started looking for it, and as it got more difficult to find, I thought, well, all right, I just don't need to worry about bourbon. I love Buffalo Trace. It what got me started, but I'm not going to hunt everywhere for Buffalo Trace. Well, I started thinking about other bourbons that I might want to get into or try. And a company by the name of Old Forester kept coming up. And I thought, like, what's that bourbon all about? So my second question to you is, what was the bourbon that expanded your gaze? In other words, you weren't a one-trick pony. You just didn't like one bourbon. You wanted to try more bourbons, and when you did, it opened your eyes. For me, that was the Old Forester 1910, and it began my journey on the Whiskey Row series, where I got all the Whiskey Rows down. In fact, several of them that you see back there are second and third bottles. This is, I think, the 3rd bottle of 1910 I've had. And that expanded my gaze and made me into a bourbon lover, not just a Buffalo Trace lover. Getting into the Whiskey Row series made me a bourbon lover. So, question 3 I have for you. If you like finished bourbons, and if you don't, just pass this question and go to the next one. If you like finished bourbons like I do, what was the bourbon that turned you on to it and what made you want to try more? Put you on that kind of like side trail of finished bourbons on your journey. For me, the one and only Widow Jane Decadence. I can't remember why I tried this. It's been a couple years. And I remember seeing it on a shelf and reading about a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys finished in maple syrup barrels, and I'm going like, what? They can do that? Really? And at the time, it was available, and it was, I think it was like 79 bucks, something like that. And I thought like, I gotta try this. Maple syrup barrels? It got my start into loving good finished bourbons. And I'll emphasize good. The next question I have for you, are you into wheated bourbons? I am what they call a wheater, someone that loves wheated bourbons. And I like wheated whiskeys, okay, and other wheated products, and 4-grainers, but a good wheated bourbon, I just love good wheated bourbon. And the first wheated bourbon I ever tried was, of course, Weller Special Reserve. And I thought, oh, this is good. Yeah, it's good. And I love Weller to this day. I still have backup bottles of Weller in the whiskey vault. But it wasn't the bourbon, it wasn't the wheater that turned me into a fan or lover of wheated bourbons. You know what that bourbon was? Maker's Mark Cask Strength. I wasn't a real fan. I'd tasted the Maker's before and going like, no, not really for me. And somebody offered me the Cask Strength, and I thought, well, you know, when they were offering it to me, oh, I don't really know. It's just this crazy high proof. No, that's not for me. I like taste over proof. No, you don't get it. He was telling me how the Maker's Mark is put in at a lower entry proof, and their cask strengths aren't these 120, 130, whatever crazy bourbons and whiskeys you hear up. It's generally around 110. So I tried it. This stuff is freaking awesome. The Maker's Mark Cask Strength let me go down another road in my journey to become a lover of wheated bourbons. Wheated bourbons to this day are some of my favorite bourbons. Now, I love just all kinds of bourbons, but wheated bourbons have a special place with me. I just absolutely love a good wheated bourbon. And that led me, there's all kinds of Maker's Mark behind me. I've been trying all kinds of flavors. My latest one was the BEP. And one day I'm going to get the new one that just came out, if I can ever find it. The Cellar, I think it is. So anyways, this is what led me down my road of wheated bourbons. It was very influential, as all these were. So the biggest change in my life was when I decided to hunt bourbons. And that led me to having this channel and sharing this video with you. And the reason why I got into hunting bourbons, because what I was looking for was an allocated bourbon. Believe it or not, it wasn't the Buffalo Trace. I had managed to squirrel away enough Buffalo Trace where I really didn't have a problem with Buffalo Trace. But I'd come to find another one that I liked, and I was really aggravated that I couldn't just go out and buy it. I got a taste of it, I don't remember where, and I go, oh, this is really good. And it's affordable. Man, I gotta find it. Allocated. Not around. So that bourbon got me into bourbon hunting, going to bottle shops, going online, watching YouTube videos. Where are people finding these bourbons? Because I have to find this bourbon. It was a challenge. And of course it led me into just bourbon hunting in general. But my question is to you, what was the bourbon most influential in making you a bourbon hunter? For me, Eagle Rare 10-year. I hunted all over the earth for this stuff. When I first tasted it and then found out that I couldn't get it, I couldn't just go down to the bottle shop and buy it, I'm a very driven person, and I started hunting all over the places. Now, it led me to other bourbons and to where we are today, like I said a minute ago. But Eagle Rare is what got me into bourbon hunting. So, these bourbons are the 5 most influential bourbons in my bourbon journey. What were your 5? Let me know. So, as always, never drink and drive. Please drink responsibly, and we'll see you next time.